All right. You guys hear me? Coming through loud and clear? Wonderful. And you guys in, excuse me, you guys in Slack, if you would just direct all your chat in the chat window in Zoom. Give me one less thing to try to fumble around with. And when you write in the chat, you'll see right just above where you type, you'll see whether you want to send that to all panelists or everyone. And if you guys will send it to everyone, then if you have any questions that, excuse me, some of the other members could answer, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. All right, just give me 1 second here. Everybody doing good? Doing well? So I imagine most of you guys already know who I am, a bit about me. But anyway, I'm Daniel Rowe. I've been developing out these tools for a while now. I've been trading since 2007. Started off working for a fund, a private equity fund in Ecuador, and then continued on after that meltdown in 2008 and 9, 7, 8, and 9. After moving back home, and just bear with me 1 second here. Yeah, we've got more people rolling in now. Good. All right, I don't really see anybody I can add yet. Well, yeah, it's fine. Whatever. I'll get to the questions periodically. But anyway, yeah, I've been working with Bloodhound and Blackbird for a while. Well, Blackbird, even since before it came out. And I've been trying to develop some tools that I knew I needed to be able to do the type of analysis that I wanted to do effectively and be able to get to the point to where I could automate the stuff that I'm doing with volume and market geometry and momentum divergence across multiple time frames. So Bloodhound has been really kind of the key for me as far as developing all this stuff. Typically, normal, I say normal people, but, people like everyday traders don't really think much about condition building and logic, the flow of the sequence of steps and order of, the order of the conditions. So for instance, building out a trading plan, while it does have psychology and risk management and all these other facets, one of the most important elements, of course, is your actual trading methodology, your strategy. What defines your edge, and hopefully you have some sort of edge. Most people are trading some strategy that they've bought from somewhere, tried to develop on their own, and of course they wouldn't trade it if they didn't think that they did have an edge. So to get your mind to be able to think in the way necessary to kind of build out all these logical conditions is pretty foreign at first. And it was really through working with Bloodhound that I got to the point to where I could start putting these things together pretty quickly. So while it is a little bit foreign, like anything, at first, the more you do it, obviously, the better you get and the easier it becomes and the faster you can do it. So this is just one example of a Bloodhound template where I've got several different rules. Now you might think, well, that's too many, but really what I'm looking for are a confluence of essentially the same signals, okay, across 4 different time frames. Now I've added this 4th one in so that I could focus more on some of these smaller turning points throughout the day. So typically what we do in the trading room, you guys saw the trade that I took yesterday in the afternoon. I made that video and sent it out. If you didn't see it yet, it's that little 7-minute video covering the long in the ES right here. Sorry, not right there. It's way back. Yeah, right here. Now, unfortunately, I closed. I took one of them off before I went to sleep about midnight in here, and then took the other one off right there. I think it was about 6:45. Okay, because I mean it had already run about 140 ticks straight up. So I was thinking, well, if it pulls back, then I'll get into it. But I had so much going on today that I just really wanted to be out of it, so I didn't have to think about it or get distracted with it. But you can see it's done exactly what I'm looking for, which is to go up and make a new high. I mean, it hasn't made the new high yet, but it's obviously well on its way. One second. So at any rate, working with Bloodhound, this is the kind of drag and drop condition building that Bloodhound allows you to do. So, like I said, most of us aren't really programmers, and neither do we want to be, because it's literally like learning a new language. That's exactly what it is, really. And this allows those of us that aren't programmatically inclined to still be able to do, not just some simple condition building, but really putting together just about anything you could imagine. So this is what I'm moving towards. I want to get to the point to where I have at least the majority of what has to come together for a trade built out. And I think I'm kind of well on my way here now. I mean, we've been doing this for a while, but what I've put together here, just with the volume, is well, I think it'll speak for itself here in a minute. So what I want to do today is go through a couple of examples. Now, we literally, well, let me kind of put it like this. We have everything working properly. I'm going to run this in Market Replay and show you. But I've been building and testing and putting all this stuff together literally night and day. And we're just to the point today where it's working as intended. It's working properly in real time. This relative volume on the tick charts has been just, I don't want to say a nightmare, but it's pretty close to getting it to work properly in real time. Because it is really just a massive algorithm to get this to even calculate, much less display the same in real time as it does for the historical chart. So now everything's working properly. I have the Bloodhound templates built out, but I literally just got done with that section of it. So now I have the Blackbird templates that I'm in the process of making. And rather than, fumbling around here and acting like I have all this done, I have the majority of it done. I just don't have the Blackbird template done. So what I'm going to do first is show you around some of the signals here recently in the ES using the the Bloodhound templates, which we'll use to actually enter the trades with Blackbird. And then we'll just build it out together pretty quickly, enough to where you can at least see Blackbird initiate the trade and manage the trade. So we'll kind of do that together. We'll make this a bit of a training session. I'll show you how I do some of this condition building putting the pieces together, and then we'll turn Blackbird on here. And there are a couple of tricks to using market replay in NinjaTrader, to using it effectively and without wasting a bunch of time. So I'll show you that too. So what I've got here, let me just say, yeah, Jordy, the installer will be done this evening. So I wanted to get at least some, I mean, I could put together some simple Blackbird templates pretty quickly, but I wanted to get, something worth using and having initially, and then we'll continue to build upon it. But if it's not done by, say, 6 o'clock, then it'll probably be done by 8:30. And then if we don't ship it out tonight, we'll ship it out immediately after the trading room tomorrow. All right, let me just answer 2 or 3 questions. There aren't, but 2 or 3. Let's see. Amit is asking, will I make the Bloodhound and Blackbird templates available to users who only purchase? Yeah, I will. Yeah, you are. So I guess you already own Bloodhound and Blackbird. Then yeah, I'll do that for you. One thing for those of you that aren't already an owner of Bloodhound or Blackbird, the guys at Shark Indicators have asked me to throw in I think it's a 1-year or 2-year subscription to Stocks and Commodities magazine as a bonus. So we'll have a couple of different bonuses, and we'll do a lot of training sessions over the next several weeks. Probably 2 next week, maybe 2 or 3, and then we'll probably do at least. Well, we'll definitely do at least 1 per week for the next 5 weeks. But during that time, I'll be building out all of the content for the volume course that we're doing now that this major milestone is met. So let's do this. I've got a 5-minute chart. So what I'm trying to do with this workspace here is to focus in, kind of home in on more turning points throughout the day, as opposed to just simply looking for the high or the low or the major swing high. The most typically what I'm doing is looking for the major reversals. Let's say the major 2 to 4 reversals in each market per week. Okay, what I'm doing with this is looking more for 1 or 2 major reversals per day. Okay, and this is basically the first set of a group of setups that I'm building out. So this is one of the more important trade types. This is looking for a confluence of volume divergence signals together with some pretty clear supply coming in at a high and demand coming in at a low. And just looking at the signals by themselves, they're actually pretty incredible just by themselves. But typically you want to combine this with, your major areas in the market geometry. So I'll get into that here in a minute. But what we have here on the top left is the tick chart. Okay, and this is the culprit to all my headaches for the past couple of weeks. This right here, this is the relative volume for the non-time-based charts. This is relative volume for tick-based charts. Okay, so we're actually able to see relative volume. Relative volume, the calculation is based on time frames. So it's based on the total amount of volume that transpired within a certain bar compared to the total volume for that time period that makes up that bar over the past, say, 5 to 10 to 20 days, depending upon the size of the chart. So we're actually able to get that figure now, the relative volume for each bar, each non-time-based bar independently of the preceding bars and the subsequent bars. And it makes for a much, much more accurate look into what is actually happening in the volume. Okay. So I've kind of explained that, maybe not as succinctly as I would have had I been completely prepared, but in the past couple of webinars, I think I've beaten that to death, the importance of this relative volume for these non-time-based charts. For instance, this low right here. So this is the low before that next push up, and that was immediately out of the report this morning. So that was preliminary. It was preliminary GDP, I think, this morning. And that was the low that was made. So that's a 2-bar pattern that we have a very particular signal for. It's a selling climax followed by a churn bar, and the amount of volume that transpired or that transacted within that time period, within those couple of bars, was nearly 10 times higher than it typically is for that time period, for the amount of time that transpired within that bar. So that's something that you wouldn't have access to on a tick chart. There's just, really no way to get that type of information without this massive and incredibly tricky algorithm to run these calculations. And you can see this is the volume, the raw volume input in the sub panel. And let me just show you this briefly. The volume analyst allows you to display these various calculation modes. All right, so we have, that's volume, that's raw volume. Of course, running all of our conditions for the spikes, the climax, the churn, the 2-bar patterns, the volume divergence, all of that. Then we have the relative volume, which you can now put on any chart. Density, which is volume per range. Relative density, which you can now use on any chart. And range, relative range, and then volume per second. So on a tick chart, the relative volume is essentially, it's sort of combining the output of what would be volume per second and then raw volume. Okay, the volume per second gives us, on a non-time-based chart, it gives us a better idea as to, when we have a lot of really fast orders coming through, which is typically indicative of market orders coming in. And the faster the bar is plotting on a tick chart, the faster that volume is coming in, and typically you'll have these extreme spikes in the volume per second. So the relative volume takes that into account, of course, because if the bar is plotting very quickly and all of the volume that it typically takes to make up, in this case, a 2200 tick bar, if all of those transactions are coming in much more rapidly than the preceding bars, then that means we have a lot of volume coming in much more rapidly than typical, and the relative volume will show that. So just the volume per second by itself, or just the volume on a tick chart by itself, while useful, the relative volume on the tick charts is really much more incredible and useful. All right, so this 2200 tick is about the size of a 3-minute chart, 2 to 3 minute chart during the day session. And then I have a 5-minute chart here on the bottom left with relative volume. And then these 2 charts are my faster charts. This one on the bottom, this is a little bit faster than a 2 minute. So this is sometimes it's about a 1 minute, sometimes it's closer to a 2.5 minute, depending upon volatility. Okay, and this is our custom bar type that we've made that it's basically a hybrid of tick, range, and seconds. And for the most part, for these, at least, I basically have the range input disabled for now. until I come back and rebuild these. I'm going to make the range setting a kind of an auto adjusting thing based on probably the 5-minute average range. So I'll make these kind of auto updating as far as the range settings are concerned, the volatility settings. All right, so this one between 2.5 and 1 minute, this one between about 30 seconds and 1.5 minutes. Thereabouts, more or less. Okay, so I have Bloodhound. Let me just remove Blackbird temporarily here. Any questions on any of that? TJ's asking if I do anything with order flow. Not really. I mean, I have in the past, but I find it to be sort of overkill and just not really necessary, just too much information. But I am going to be adding in, I think we talked about this last time, I am going to be adding in volume delta to this next, and more of like a relative volume delta. So a very particular application of this bid and ask data, bid and ask delta data. I'll come back to some of your questions here in a minute. Let me just take this last one. Will row bars adjust during the day when volatility changes? Not right now, no. Right now, it's a perfect hybrid of whatever the settings you choose here. So you can have a maximum and a minimum range, ticks, and seconds. And whenever all three of the minimums have been met, or you can disable any one. Okay, you can disable any input by just setting it to 1. All right, so you don't have to use all three. You could simply use any combination you want, really. Okay, but when any maximum is met, the next bar opens. When all three minimums have been met, the next bar opens. Okay, I'll go into the details of that in the members area, but long story short, it's a more effective way to display the volume data on these faster intraday charts. Tick charts, I mean, they basically, I don't want to say limiting because they do give you other valuable information, but each chart has its own limitations. The minute data, the minute bars will display the rapid increase in volatility much more effectively and quickly, responsibly. And, you know, the tick charts will give you kind of a different view into the volume per tick, how many transactions, how much volume actually makes up the transactions. So total number of contracts per tick. But the ranges of the bars are typically capped to within a certain standard deviation of its average range, just simply based on, you know, the total number of transactions that come in, unless it's a very, very rare event, won't really break above, you know, very rarely break above, say, a 6 sigma, a 6 standard deviation of a 200 period moving average of the range of those bars. So minute bars, they do adjust much more rapidly to increasing and decreasing volatility. Tick charts, they tend to stay pretty stable as far as the volatility. I mean, it does go up and down, but not nearly as rapidly as the minute charts. And this bar type attempts to synthesize the two of those together with range settings if you so choose. So that's what this is all about. It's trying to display the volume data more effectively so that we can still, you know, get the benefits from each chart type, but combine them in such a way that they're it's more of a synergistic effect, and displaying these volume signals much more pronounced. So this is the fastest one, and then the slower one again is right here. All right, so there's one thing that I'm going to add to this template here. Jeremy, I found a very obscure little issue with Bloodhound, and he's about to send me a new installer here in a moment, but I'm probably not going to wait for that. So let's just get on with it here. So what I'm looking for in this, let me just show you what's happening here at the low. I kind of went over this in the video as well, but let me just do it briefly right here. So at this low that we made yesterday, we're coming down into really just a picture perfect area for a major reversal back to the upside. Okay. And the major low that we made there was off the top of this. Let me just get rid of everything else. It was off the top of this kiss goodbye line. So this is just a simple trend line from high to high. We broke through that, pulled back to it, and turned up, but turned up on really just completely sideways overlapping mess to just barely break that prior high. And now we've come down in a picture perfect ABC pattern right to the top of that kiss goodbye line again. And just a number of other areas that came together right there. So I was waiting for that yesterday. So I first want to hit that major area that I've got clearly defined on both my tick and minute charts, and that's right here. So it almost came down and touched it on this really fast momentum move and then popped back up. That's my sign of strength. That's my really nice sign of strength. We're coming down very fast momentum. We put in that spike low. We turn back up so we know that it's ready to start moving up. And then we come back in this overlapping mess to test that low and break it, and then hit all of those areas that I was waiting to hit, putting in this group of volume divergence signals on all of these different charts. Okay, and then you see what happened. It turns straight up and runs up pretty dramatically. So that's what I was looking for, and that's why I took the trade. And we'll do that one here in market replay in a minute. But just to show you what's happening here. So at the low on the 5 minute, and towards the latter part of that video, you see me talking about this in real time in the trading room. That was a short that I took, but yeah, I got out right here, unfortunately. So yeah, I did short that and got out way too soon. And then it does exactly what we're looking for. You're not going to buy that, right? You're not going to buy it when it looks like that, but you're pretty close to those areas at that point. You turn back up. You put in that really nice churn bar right here. Pretty obvious sign of supply coming in there. It does turn back down. You get another little churn bar here at the low, and it does turn back up a little bit for 15 minutes or so, and then we come back down, break the low, don't quite get all of the signals that I'm looking for right there, and I kind of thought I was going to miss it, but then of course it does come back down here, and now we have this final selling climax on the 5 minute, followed by a churn bar thereafter, and then we turn up right here. So I almost just went ahead and jumped into it after seeing this reversal bar on the 5 minute, but the way that I'm going to work this out, I'm going to do this in front of you guys if you don't mind. I'm going to go ahead and finish building this template exactly the way that I want it, and it's the same exact template that we're going to use on the other markets. So it's pretty much built out. I just want to add one more little condition to it. to require that the signal bar be close to the actual turning point. So that's the last thing that I have to add there. So here, yeah, it turned up, almost missed it, thinking that I missed it, almost jumped in, but then it pulled back right there, not quite to a new low, but at this low, and this is why multiple time frames are so important, we put in this little group of churn bars there, right here and right here, which you see we actually have an extreme churn bar right there. So a very, very strong sign of demand coming in at that slightly higher low. And when it turned up right there out of that, excuse me, that's where I bought. So I actually bought one at 26.76 and the other one at 26.75 right there. And then of course it goes right up from there. So let's see, we've got at that low, which was final here, we've got volume divergence on the 2,200 tick within this last little swing here. We've got volume divergence between the larger swings on the 5-minute, and we've got volume divergence on this RTS or row bars 2 chart right here. And that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting to see a complete loss of momentum, going sideways, because this is, the end of a pretty large move down. So I want to see that complete loss of momentum on these faster charts. I want to see very high relative volume for the final selling climax, and then to come back down and test that on, the lower the volume, the better, basically. And that's what we get. We get this little reversal bar here, and then it pulls back down, gives us the very clear sign of demand before it breaks to a new low. So that's where I bought, and that's what we're going to go over here in market replay now. So what I want to do, I had built this out earlier on this chart, just using 3 charts. And I could do that right now and probably make it a little simpler, but I want to just go ahead and finish it. You guys mind if we kind of build this thing out a little bit together? It would probably be good training for you anyway. Let me see. I'll take a couple more questions and then we'll just kind of do it. You ready, Omar? Yep, reader's working pretty well now. That thing was pretty difficult to get working properly in NinjaTrader 8, but it's actually, I think it's even a little bit better now, because before in Ninja 7, when we would make a change here in the solver inside of the reader, when we would make a change here inside of the reader, which is inside of Bloodhound or Blackbird, we would then have to open up Bloodhound and save it. Now we actually can just click the supply button and it automatically gets stored. So I think by the time we're done with it, it's going to be even better. It's just learning how to do all that all over again in another language. Well, with a lot of different moving parts and new drawing language, I guess. All right. Yeah, volume divergence is really a different kind of a thing than necessarily momentum divergence, momentum of the price bars. So volume divergence is, it's kind of irrespective of how fast price may be moving. The way that we have it set up, though, it's ready to take filters based on price momentum divergence, right? That's the next thing that we have to build out, that divergence is pro indicator. So once that's built, then we can actually combine the two in the same indicator, basically. Well, what we can do is we can grab the info from the Divergences Pro indicator into the volume analyst and then filter the signals based on that. So there's quite a lot that we can do now that we have all this stuff built out. If you have Bloodhound for NinjaTrader 7 right now, Larry, there's a beta, and I'm going to talk with Jeremy maybe right after this. If not right after, then first thing tomorrow. He's got another, it's really just a very minor update, and I don't necessarily have to have that to do what I want to do. I can just use a simple little indicator to do what I want to do, which I'll do now. But I'm going to get it to where you guys can also use the beta so that you can use this system and the readers and everything else. But, just know that it's still a beta. But from what I can tell, he's come a really, really long way, and it's working very, very well. So a couple of things that I thought might have something Bloodhound related were actually reader manager related, because this is such a, I don't know what to call it. It's almost like a voodoo kind of a thing, but it's tricky. Let's say it's pretty tricky, but we now have all that sorted out, so it's all good. Yeah, George is asking why is relative volume. Let me just say that very quickly. So why is relative volume better? So if I put normal volume on, just very quickly, guys, I know most of you know this. If I put normal volume on and I'm trying to compare what's happening in volume, what am I comparing it with? Well, naturally, I'm comparing it with the preceding volume bars. I have a few different things I can compare. I can compare the total volume per bar with the preceding bar's volume and run a moving average and standard deviations and moving average envelopes and blah, blah, blah. I could look at the delta per bar, but still you're going to have this massive variance from the European session into the US Open, and then the lunchtime lull, right? So you have the seasonality within the day, you have the variance between the sessions, and comparing the volume, intraday volume, with the average of the intraday volume, using the preceding bars, using the overnight session into the day session, even just using the bars within the day session itself. Because of the seasonality, you're not getting an accurate view. You're not able to get proper signals that are consistent, because you're always going to have huge signals right at the open, right at the close, depending upon how you have it set up. It's pretty complex to analyze the volume in relation to the range in any sort of meaningful way on intraday volume and intraday price action. So the relative volume eliminates that wide variance between the sessions, the seasonality effect throughout the day session, and really within every session, there's some degree of seasonality. And it's comparing each bar's volume with the average volume for that time period, with the average volume for that time period. Okay. And I can tell you it's better, but I'd just rather show you it's better. I'll just leave that on there then. All right. We'll do this in the euro as well. Let's start off with that little swing high there, actually. That was first thing in the morning after the open. So let me do this pretty quickly here. What I want to do is eliminate some of these signals that get kind of spread out here. I'll do that. I'm not going to waste your guys' time. I'll do this immediately after the presentation and then get that installer wrapped up. Really, the way that I have this, we shouldn't have these signals. These are too early. And we shouldn't have this signal right here. Okay, so I kind of made this chart a little bit faster. Before, like I said, I was just using the 3 charts, but to do basically to catch more of those smaller intraday moves, I essentially have to build this trade type that I'm doing here using just these 3 charts, and then the smaller trade type to catch some of these little swing highs and lows, such as this low right here. I have to use just these 3, this row bars 1, 2, and the tick chart. And again, for the larger signals that I'm showing you today, for the more, much more intense and massive reversal signals, I'm using these 3, the 2, row bars 2, 5-minute, and the tick. So that's maybe a little bit confusing, but rather than wasting your time, let's just do this. So what I want to do is go back and market replay. But before I do that, if you connect to market replay while the workspace is open, you have to wait for it to cycle all the way past midnight to get to the point to where you want to start. And that's basically going from midnight for me until after the open, which is at 8:30. And you have to wait for it to go those 8.5 hours. So rather than doing that and having to wait for it to go through all of these bars and ticks, what you want to do, market replay is actually better in Ninja 8, but there's this one quirky little thing here. So rather than connecting to replay now, I'm going to close the workspace first. I'm going to connect over here on Ninja 7 too, so I can show you something before we're done. All right, and now I'll connect to the playback connection. So market replay, they're calling this playback connection here. Yeah, I don't know, footprint charts, maybe you think they're great, but from what I can tell, it's become basically a major fad in the trading community. And yeah, it gives you a lot of detailed information, but it's only part of what you need. And to be honest with you, I don't even think you need that. I don't really need to know whether the majority of it was at the bid or the ask to know that it's supply or demand. I mean, you can basically see that right on the chart without having to look at bid and ask data. So this is really all you need. Yeah, but I mean, any volume lets you see where the action is. Just the total volume. I mean, you don't need a footprint chart to tell you that, right? And they're pretty massive bars, so you're not able to see a whole lot of data on the chart. You know what I mean? But, you know, whatever, to each their own. It's interesting data for sure. And there are some things that I want to add with the delta. But all of that fine, detailed information between the bid and the ask and how many were at each. And, you know, that's a lot of information for me to process when I've already got quite a bit of information to process. So at a certain point, you kind of get decision fatigue, you know? You can only handle so much, and then it starts to have a negative effect. If you guys can't tell, I'm really exhausted here. Let me, yeah, see, I'm so exhausted. I did the wrong thing. 1 second. What you want to do, thank goodness in Ninja 8, everything opens up pretty much immediately. All right, I'm going to close this reader manager. So here we are. I've got the market replay data. Today is the 30th. Yesterday was the 29th. So I'm going to right click on here. I'm connected to the replay connection. I'm going to right click and select go to. And that was, I think, it's right at 9, but let's say 8:58 a.m. and click OK. So now it'll go there pretty much right away. You see it cycling through there. When you have all of those charts open, it actually has to cycle through those ticks one by one by one. So that's something you really want to avoid if you can. All right, so now that we're there, now I'll open up the workspace here. It's great that it opens so fast. What we're doing to get this thing to load up in the sequence, in the necessary sequence, Bloodhound is essentially loading after the chart. So right now, that chart is building Bloodhound and the readers, and those readers are going to open the reader manager, and then they're going to populate that reader manager list one by one, and then it finishes loading. So there it is here. I killed the manager. Hang on a second. I got to open it back up. Yeah, so here's the manager. So it's loaded those readers one by one. And once everything is opened up, you just simply click on that recalculate all button, and it's going to cycle through and make sure they're connected. So it's cycling through those readers now. And now they're all connected, you see? So this is actually what's giving us access to all of those different charts, which is something that's been so difficult to do, really in any trading platform. There's really no other trading platform that can let you build these types of condition sets, rule sets, trade setups, and automate all of this stuff, accessing the details, the indicators, you know, whatever the signals from any of those other charts directly into this condition builder and trade automator, trade designer. So really pretty incredible stuff. I mean, this is a leading edge of trading technology right now for sure. So this is what I've been needing to get to the point to where I could do this type of multiple time frame stuff in the first place, and, you know, in a way that will actually work in real time, and historically the way that that it would if you know, were able to access every tick, or let's say every signal on a tick by tick basis. So this reader manager is what's giving us the details of all of these different solvers, each one of which is accessing a different volume analyst on these 4 charts here. Okay. So that's what that's all about. And that's kind of keeping everything connected, keeping the signals coming in, and updating properly. So that is the backbone to the whole thing. And that was a bear to get going and working right. All right, so here we are. We're about a half hour after the open. So what I want to do now is just build a little simple, basically I'm going to take this Bloodhound template that I have right here, and I'm going to use this to automate an entry, to automate a trade. using Blackbird. So I'm just going to press play, make sure the data is coming in properly. Move this out of the way. For some reason, the market replay data didn't load that 5-minute chart properly. Let me just reload it real quick. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why that happens sometimes. Typically, the tick charts are fine, but sometimes the minute charts don't plot properly initially when you open up the workspace after you've already connected. So that might be why they do that tick by tick from midnight to the point that you're wanting to start at. That might have something to do with it. All right, so I'm going to add Blackbird here. No, you don't need a powerful computer to run this at all. We just needed updated engines for the platform. So Ninja 7 was built on technology from 2004. So Ninja 8, it's been completely updated. And it's able to do all this really intensive number crunching. Well, I mean, everything that I'm doing here now, aside from the relative volume on the tick charts, we're already doing in NinjaTrader 7 on 2004 technology. That's only able to access a single core of your PC, your CPU. So this is able to access, it's multi-threaded and whatever, and can run way more calculations concurrently than Ninja 7 could. So everything is instantaneous. It's lightning fast. So let's build this out. You want everything on each tick. We might just use on price change, but it really doesn't matter in Ninja 8 because everything is pretty much instantaneous, like I was just saying here. So enable it here. I don't want to exit on session close. And good to go. So this is the new Blackbird. Pretty amazing stuff. So what I want to do is open these order settings, load in that Bloodhound signal that I've created there for the entry. I believe that's it. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about those extra couple of tweaks I wanted to make. And let that load. It's going to take a second. Okay, there it is. Can you guys just bear with me like 20 seconds? Give me one 20-second period here. Oh my gosh, how long have I been muted? No way. 5 minutes? Well, that's perfect. Thanks for texting me. Yeah, I guess that's how tired I am. All right, so I'm just restarting here real quick. Goodness gracious. All right. Sorry, guys. Bear with me here for 1 minute. Okay. Here we go. All right. So did you hear me? Nobody heard me describing what I was doing. Huh? So what I was doing was building out just some basic rule sets for managing the orders in Blackbird. And this is something we'll do in much more detail in the training sessions. I'll let you guys kind of ask for whatever conditions you want, and then I'll build them out in front of you so you can kind of, follow along and kind of learn as we go. But the stuff that I'll be building out basically for the rest of the evening will be quite a bit more intense as far as, exiting exactly when certain combinations of things happen. Like if I get a really strong volume divergence that ends on, let's say if I'm short and I get bullish volume divergence that ends on a churn bar with a, very obvious sign of demand coming in, then I want to exit that trade automatically, right? And that's been one of my biggest problems in the past. Well, I mean, before every single webinar that we've done, this is part 3. I had been trying to get into this short, wanting to hold down below 2,700, like I've been saying for a couple of weeks. And I shorted here and wrote it down to here, and then came back and gave back pretty much, I don't know, 75 or 80% of the trade. Got short again here, rode that all the way down, gave back about 65, 70% of the trade, and got short again here, rode it all the way down, did take one off at least, and then got stopped out here. Okay, so then I ended up missing the whole entire thing. So typically, that's usually my biggest issue is with either I'm holding and swinging for the fences and I regret it, or the one time that I don't and I exit really with a great exit, but what I knew was early, I end up regretting it, like today. So I'm either basically it's a lack of consistency, and that's what Blackbird can give you is I've got this stuff defined. I've got it all well written out in my trading plan, but I always seem to want to swing for the fences. And I don't know, man. It's kind of a problem of mine. I get stuck on thinking I'm right, because a lot of times I am, but then when I'm wrong, I can't seem to react fast enough. And that's what Bloodhound does. It makes it to where you can't not react. So those are the things that I'm building out. If X, Y, and Z happens while I'm short, at least take half of the position off, if not close the whole entire thing. So there's 5 or 6 things that if they happen, I want to at least take profit. And then a couple of things that if they happen, I just want to close the trade. Okay. So that's what I'm kind of building out now. All right. Let me see what I've got going on here. I think I've got, sorry. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, now we're loading up good. All right, let's see. Pause that for a second. I just want to double check that one solver is not in here. Yeah. All right, I'm going to recalculate these real quick. Oh, I know what it was. Sorry. I enabled Blackbird and I didn't recalculate the readers first. So I'll probably make it to where that is something that is done automatically. But here, let me add Blackbird again and get this thing going. Yeah, and it's not, this is more of like honestly, more of like a training session today because of how long it's taken me to get this stuff to the point to where I can even show it at all. It's just really, really high level stuff, which of course is why nobody's done it yet. I mean, just Bloodhound and Blackbird are exceptionally advanced, but what we're using Bloodhound and Blackbird to do is pretty wild. There we go. Now then, let me just double check I have it set right on each tick. Yep. And recalculate. And you can change the way this thing looks too. You can change colors and the layout of everything. But yeah, what I was starting to show was the trailing actions and how this is set up. Basically, what I was doing was waiting for it to move 30 ticks in favor of the trade and yada, yada, yada. But we'll go into that next week. What I'm going to do, I guess you guys didn't hear this because I was on mute, but next week I'll do a training session that I'll leave open to everybody. Probably Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll send out the email tomorrow or Friday, probably tomorrow. And we'll do that first training session with you'll see everything completely done with Blackbird, with the order management, with exiting when certain things happen, taking half off when other things happen. And from there on, it'll be all private for those of you that are members. So yes, we'll just call this Profit 1. $60 ticks. Profit 2. 100 ticks. And there we are. So I'm just going to keep it simple for today because I have to. And kick it on. Let's kick it on. Don't fail me now. Do it. All right, let's just let this run a minute. Let me blow this up a little bit so you can see the signals. All right, so we've just broken that high. This is what I was saying in real time in that video. I think somebody was thinking maybe go up to 27. I said, it's looking like supplies coming in now. So I'm thinking this thing is done. And we were up at the top of this downsloping trend channel. I don't know if it was from this low or the previous low, but just so I don't have to draw back. Yeah, it is the previous low. And on the 5-minute. Anyway, I'm not going to fool with it, but we had come up to some pretty awesome and perfect areas right in here. This was not it. I think it was the 5-minute right here. Actually, but you can see it in the video, that 7-minute video where I have all the areas clearly defined here. So we've got volume divergence on the 5-minute. And this is one thing about market replay data. It never quite lines up exactly with what you have live. It's pretty close though, if I remember right. But I did have volume divergence here on the tick chart. So that trade's not going to fire if that... Well, I just paused it here. Yeah, see, in real time, that bar comes down a little bit lower. Yeah, the market replay data is not quite lining up with the actual historical. Figures. It was earlier. I'm quite sure of it. Hang on one second here. Show on chart. Yep. Yeah, up to this point, I've just been using Bloodhound. I didn't really have time to use Blackbird. It may fire on this next bar. Let's see. I kind of need one more. Let me just take off a couple of these because we should have volume divergence here, but it's not quite low enough there on the market replay data for some reason. So let's see. Well, that couldn't possibly have fired yet. 1 second. I'm not seeing the racing stripes up here at the top. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. This is kind of the way it goes when you don't have everything exactly the way that you want it, but the show must go on. Let's do it. I believe it should be. Let me just for sure delete this one thing so it at least has a chance. And if you can use now in Ninja 8, you can use the historical data as the market replay data, which is pretty cool. But it doesn't have the level 2 stuff stored if you're using that. So there's a couple of good things about it and then a couple of bad things about it. But here, get rid of that one. All right. You mean different colors for the actual stripes? Let's see. I don't think so. Not yet. I think he's basically gotten it to the point to where it's exactly like it was in Ninja 7, just functioning on Ninja 8. But that is one thing that he's going to be adding in for sure, yeah. So you can change the color of the racing stripes. Yep, no, it's not working. Perfect. No, I'm not even seeing the racing stripes in Blackbird here. So, nope. Perfect. Part 4, here we come. What a joke. Yeah, I don't know. I can't take much more of this. I'm going to have to go to sleep, guys. So, whatever. It's not... it's probably the readers not working properly in Blackbird. At least everything else is working properly in real time. I've got it working with Bloodhound flawlessly in real time. The volume analyst itself is working in real time properly. I just, barely got that done before we even started this afternoon. So the last thing, obviously, to get perfect, to get working is in Blackbird. So that's where we're at. I'll have him work on it first thing in the morning, and then probably by the time I wake up, he'll have it working. It's probably just some chart control thing with Blackbird. Blackbird is just slightly different than Bloodhound. I mean, Blackbird uses Bloodhound to enter the trades. It can, which is what we're trying to do. But it kind of hides the stuff a little bit differently than Bloodhound does. Because it's not all on the chart. You're not using indicators on the chart inside of Bloodhound. Inside of Bloodhound or Blackbird. But inside of Blackbird, there's like another layer because you have Bloodhound in there. So it's got to be something to do with that. Anyway, I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to finish the files at least today, and then hopefully he'll have that done by the time I wake up in the morning. So that's where we're at. I would feel like an idiot to try to sell this thing now. So rather than doing that, we have hit some pretty major milestones this week, though. We'll say that. Anyway, there's the link. I don't know why you would want to, but here is the recording on YouTube. And we'll do a part 4. Yeah, so I'm going to show this in working in Blackbird next week. I was going to say maybe Friday, but I'll probably do it Saturday. I mean, it should just be one minor little thing why it's not actually showing it in real time in Blackbird. So that should be simple enough now that we have all the reader situation figured out inside of Bloodhound. So that was the biggest ordeal. All right, so I'm going to shut it down. You guys have a good one. I'll send out a link to that tomorrow. For now, I am going to go get some sleep. So everybody have a good one, and talk to you guys next time. All right, I'll send you an email tomorrow then. All right, bye everyone. Have a good one. Yep. I'll go through the questions later and send you guys an email. All right. Bye, guys.